This episode is adapted from a clinician-written article on Mentalyc and brought to life in audio for therapists who prefer listening on the go.
I love that. Perfect for the drive between sessions.
Exactly. This piece was written by Gargi Singh, a counseling psychologist, and we're really excited to feature their perspective here.
Wonderful. It's always great to hear from colleagues in the field.
It really is. And just for context, if you're new to Mentalyc, it's a clinical intelligence platform that supports therapists with documentation and those all-important clinical insights.
Helpful context. So let's dive in.
Let's. You know that feeling, that absolute pit-in-your-stomach moment when a client, someone you feel you have a real connection with, looks you dead in the eye and says something like, "I just don't see the point of therapy anymore."
I've felt that in my soul. It's like a punch to the gut. Especially when you're newer in the field, you take it so personally.
So personally, I had a client maybe 2 months into my practice who did exactly that. I thought we were making incredible progress. We had this great rapport, and then mid-session, he just drops that bomb. My stomach just knotted up instantly.
And what did you do? I mean, I know what I did the first time that happened to me.
I'm sure it was the same thing. Instead of just pausing and giving him space to tell me more, which I now know is the right move, I just launched. I went into this super nervous, defensive explanation of all the benefits of therapy. I was citing research studies, talking about long-term outcomes, everything except actually listening to him.
The classic let me prove my value panic response. I did the exact same thing. I basically started giving a lecture on CBT principles to a client who was clearly having a profound emotional moment. By the time I stopped rambling, the entire energy in the room was just gone. The moment was lost.
It was gone, and with it, the chance to understand what was really going on. Thinking about it still makes me cringe a little bit, but my gosh, it taught me something my textbooks never could.
They never do they? They teach you the theory of the therapeutic alliance, but they don't teach you how to handle the feeling of it crumbling right in front of you. We talk about it like it's this stable thing you build like a brick wall. You lay the foundation, you put up the bricks, and then it's just there.
Yes! Like it's a checkbox. Alliance established, check. But it's so much messier than that. It's alive. It's constantly shifting. Some days you feel so in sync, and the next it feels shaky and you can't immediately put your finger on why.
It's more like a dance than a building. Sometimes you're perfectly in step, and other times you're stepping on each other's toes. And you have to pause and say, whoops, let's reset.
That's a perfect analogy. It reminds me of this supervision session I had. I finally admitted how incredibly annoyed I was getting with a client. She would text me 2 or 3 times on the day of our session. Just making sure we're still on for 3 p.m. and then an hour later, see you at 3.
I can feel that. The little pings of irritation.
Right? And in my head, I'm having this whole narrative. Yes, we're still on. I'm a professional. I have a calendar. I don't need 3 reminders for an appointment that's been the same for 6 months. I was just stewing in my own self-righteousness.
And I bet your supervisor had something to say about that.
Oh, she did. She waited for me to finish my rant, and then she asked this question that just stopped me cold. She just said, "What do you think those texts mean to your client?"
Wow. There it is, the question that changes everything.
Everything. Because I hadn't considered that for a second. I was so wrapped up in what it meant about me and my professionalism. It never occurred to me that her texts had nothing to do with my competence and everything to do with her anxiety, her deep-seated fear of abandonment. She wasn't checking on me. She was reassuring herself that she hadn't been forgotten.
That's such a powerful reframe. And it's in those moments, in those ruptures, Whether it's a client questioning therapy or a client over-texting, that's where the real work happens. But man, as a newer therapist, that's also where I felt the most lost and the most like a failure.
Completely. And it's interesting because these ruptures tend to show up in a couple of distinct ways. You have the confrontation ruptures, which are actually kind of a gift, even if they feel awful.
Right. The client who says, I don't think this is working, or I felt you weren't listening to me last week. It's direct. They are handing you valuable information on a silver platter, even if that platter is on fire.
A platter on fire, yes. My client who questioned the purpose of therapy was doing me a favor. He was telling me something was wrong. I just wasn't ready to hear it at the time.
But then there's the other kind, the withdrawal rupture. And that one is so much harder to spot.
The subtle signs. The client who suddenly becomes compliant, agreeable. The challenging questions stop. They might seem like the perfect client on the surface, but they've emotionally disengaged. They're just going through the motions.
And as a therapist, especially early on, you can miss those cues entirely. You might even breathe a sigh of relief thinking, oh, good, the resistance is gone. But it's not the resistance that's gone. It's the client that's gone. They've just left their body in the chair.
The session feels hollow. You're talking, they're nodding, but you leave the session feeling like nothing actually happened. There was no connection. It's like talking to a very pleasant, very empty room.
And that often connects back to those deeper attachment patterns, right? The confrontation rupture can be a test, an expression of anxious attachment. I'll push you away to see if you'll leave me. While the withdrawal rupture can be more of an avoidant strategy. This is getting too intense. I need to create distance to feel safe.
Exactly. One fears abandonment, the other fears engulfment. It's so complex, and tracking those subtle shifts it's a real skill. It takes so much attunement. This is actually where I've been thinking about how technology can support us, not replace us.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Well, you're in the session, you're focused, you're trying to be present. You can't possibly catch every single nuance. But afterwards, when you're doing your documentation, that's your time for reflection. And I was thinking about how a tool like Alliance Genie within Mentalyc could be so helpful here.
How so? How do you see it fitting in?
Well, as you're working on your note, it can help you reflect on the session's dynamics. It can prompt you to consider those blind spots. For instance, it might highlight a shift in the conversation and prompt a reflection like, a potential moment of client disengagement was noted here. Consider exploring this in the next session. It's like having a little supervisor built into your note-taking process.
I like that. It's not telling you what happened. It's inviting you to be curious about what happened. Because you're right, in the moment I'm focused on the client in front of me, but later when I'm writing my note, having a nudge that says, hey, remember this part? Let's think about the alliance here. That could be invaluable for catching those subtle withdrawal ruptures.
Right. It's augmenting your clinical judgment. It's helping you connect the dots you might have been too busy to connect during the session itself. That client who went quiet, maybe the tool flags that shift, and suddenly you remember, oh, that was right after I said X, and it opens up a whole new layer of understanding.
It turns documentation from a chore into a structured reflective practice, which is what it's supposed to be, but often isn't when we're rushing to get our notes done.
Exactly. Quick pause. If this part of the work feels familiar, that pressure to document while also trying to be reflective, Mentalyc can help. Its AI note-taker and tools like Alliance Genie TM support your documentation and clinical judgment while staying fully HIPAA and SOC2 compliant. You can explore it at Mentalyc.com. That's Mentalyc.com.
So we've talked about what these ruptures are and how to spot them. Let's talk about the hard part, repair.
The hardest and most important part. Because repair isn't a single conversation. It's not about just saying, I'm sorry. It's an ongoing invitation to be transparent and attuned.
It's about rebuilding safety. And that starts with just acknowledging the rupture without getting defensive. Acknowledging that something is happening in the space between you.
My best repair moments have started with something so simple, like something feels a little different in the room today. Did I miss something important? Or even more directly, I'm sensing some tension between us right now. Is it okay if we talk about that?
That takes so much courage. To name the elephant in the room. Because your own nervous system is screaming, don't do it. It's awkward. Just pretend everything is fine.
It really is. My anxiety response with that first client made me talk at him. Now I try to just pause, take a breath, and get curious.
Curiosity over defensiveness. That's the whole game. Instead of, why are you saying that? It's, tell me more about that feeling. It shifts the entire dynamic from an argument to an exploration.
It really does. And this has been the hardest lesson for me personally. I used to think that a rupture meant I was failing as a therapist, that I had done something wrong, that I wasn't good enough.
We all did. It's the imposter syndrome talking. But now I genuinely see them as essential. A successful repair doesn't just get you back to baseline. It can make the alliance stronger than it was before. The client learns that the relationship can withstand conflict, that they can be angry or disappointed or distant, and you will still be there trying to understand.
That's so true. That experience with the client sending reminders, my annoyance was my own counter-transference getting in the way. Once I understood her need for reassurance, my irritation just dissolved, and we could actually talk about her fear of being forgotten. Over time, as our trust deepened through that understanding, the reminders naturally became less frequent. I didn't have to ask her to stop.
Because the underlying need was finally being met in the relationship itself. She didn't need to text you for reassurance because she felt the reassurance in the sessions. That's beautiful work.
And that client who questioned therapy's value? After my initial defensive fumble, I managed to circle back the next week. I started the session by saying, "Hey, I don't think I responded very well when you told me you were questioning therapy last week. I got nervous. Can we try that again? I'd really like to hear what's on your mind."
Ah, that's so good. So vulnerable and real.
It was terrifying. But he visibly relaxed, and we ended up having the most honest conversation we'd ever had about his fears and his skepticism. And you know what? He stayed for another few months after that. The repair was the turning point.
That's the magic right there. Every single clinical rupture I've experienced has humbled me, but it's also expanded my capacity as a therapist. It's like stretching a muscle you didn't know you had.
Totally. So if you could go back and whisper something in your ear during those first shaky months of practice, what would you say?
Oh, man. I'd say, breathe. Just breathe. And I tell myself that these messy, uncomfortable, stomach-knotting moments, they aren't a deviation from the process. They are the process.
That's it, isn't it? They aren't signs you're feeling. They're signs you're actually in it with the client. You're in the dance.
You're in the dance. And it's okay to be clumsy. It's okay to be wrong. The goal isn't to be a perfect, flawless therapist. That's not even helpful for the client.
Right, because ultimately this work isn't about being perfect. It's about being human enough to help another human find their way through their own mess. And being human means being imperfect.
Amen to that. More curious than defensive. More willing to be wrong in the service of eventually getting it right together.
So for a practical takeaway, something a clinician listening right now could try this week, what would it be?
I think it's simple. The next time you feel that flash of something in a session, annoyance, defensiveness, confusion, that knot in your stomach, don't push it away. Just notice it. Get curious. Ask yourself, what's this about? You don't have to have the answer right away. The curiosity itself is the start of the repair.
Just notice. That's so powerful. It's a practice of mindfulness in the therapeutic space. And that kind of reflection is so crucial. If you're looking for support in tracking those subtle alliance patterns across your sessions, a tool like Alliance Genie can really help you reflect on those moments without ever storing session recordings.
A great way to build that reflective muscle. This was such a good conversation. Thank you.
It really was. Thanks for diving into the messiness with me.